Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS European Challenger. We are here at the Blizzard Arena, Burbank, California, getting ready to move into our third match of the day. My name is Fear Dragon, and I am joined by Nathanius.
What up?
What's up, man?
Not much. Watching that game, I was pretty impressive results out of Stefano.
Yeah, really didn't expect the Stefano upset there, but showing he's still in form.
You know, that's the thing about these players that I thought last match is Harstem is a player that gets rattled and he's an emotional, passionate player. And Stefano is good. He is not the player that people talk about as being like the guy that's really crazy in form compared to other European Zergs, but he doesn't get rattled and he has that X factor. That combined, everything just went so well for him after that first game too, and that was a interesting series to say the least.
Yeah, a lot of macro games. And, you know, Harstem, I think a lot of people give him a lot of credit because he has been such a strong player in a lot of other events. And speaking of other events, we actually do have a lot of other events going on. I know, so smooth, right? It's like it's my second or third time hosting or something. But Harstem has been doing really well in Nation Wars, but we also have a lot of other awesome events going on. I believe you guys can see over there that on April 18th, we had the GSL Season 2 start up, and we had, I think it was Classic, Beyond, Gumiho, Patience, SOS Solar, Trap, and Zest, all managing to qualify for the next stage.
Yeah, that was really good. The group, I caught the group on Friday. Those matches from Zest were really good. Sort of also put up a great performance as well. Big shout out to him.
But those SOS games, man, that SOS series, Game 3, Blink TTs.
Yeah, you don't see it.
You don't see it very often. Maybe we should.
It is fun. It is fun when it works.
Yeah. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, there are also awesome other things going on. As it mentioned before on that kind of that little graph you guys saw, Copa America, WCS Challenger ANZ happening at IEM Sydney, as well as WCS Austin coming up. But speaking of WCS Austin,
I can't wait for Austin.
I know, that's going to be a lot of fun. But we are going to be hopping into that third series now.
Yeah.
See who's going to make it to the playoffs of Challenger, which does eventually build into that spot that you can get a spot at Austin into the group stage.
We've developed Challenger into its own big shebang, but now at the end of it still, the regional champions do get seeded into Austin, so they're playing for even more than just the $10,000 in the WCS points. They're also trying to make their lives easier when the circuit kicks back up in June.
Yeah, it was almost also making everyone else's lives easier because you don't want to go to Austin and be like, okay, group stage 1, well, Cyril's in my group, so good luck to me. You know, it's also helping out everyone else to an extent. But okay, MaNa versus Harstem. Both of these players really solid, but this is the loser's match. So loser of this series, knocked out of Challenger, doesn't get to go to those playoffs.
Nope, this is a tough elimination match. I mean, Harstem is the player that I think a lot of people should be expecting to go through here, but let's see if he's recovered. This guy in the bottom left is looking to knock him out. He is MaNa, our blue Protoss.
And his opponent up in the top right, we got our red Protoss player. It is Harstem. Coming off the back of some really crazy macro games versus Stefano and that PvZ. PvP, not quite the same type of macro game, but Harstem showed some really good control in that series, even though he ended up losing.
Yeah. Let's, I mean, PvP ends up being like a very, very technical in a certain way. The players will almost always open up with, there's only really one way that you can start PvP games. It's the 2 gateways. That Cybercore is kind of where you make all your choices. Is it going to be something like Double Adept? Is it going to be Double Stalker? We've seen Stalker Sentry as well. And didn't we have... I think we had a really funny game in like Tesla yesterday where someone just tried to get a bunch of zealots and go for like charge on one base. Yeah, I was like, yeah, not that.
Is it like the I'm gonna mine 50 gas or like 150 gas so I can get up warp gate and also charge, but then I'm gonna stop mining gas so I just can make as many zealots as possible kind of build?
Yeah, and then you remember that force fields are in this game.
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple of times. Oh god, I think my worst. I tried doing that back in like Wings of Liberty, and I remember I was so hyped about it. I was so amped because I got up 100 gas for a robo. I got up a bunch of gateways on one base, only made zealots. I had so many zealots.
That's terrible.
And then my opponent lifted up, and I realized I couldn't actually do anything because he had a Banshee.
Yeah, that's way too early. Charge has been one of the most buffed abilities in StarCraft 2.
It's pretty strong. It's a pretty good ability.
The first thing that they did to it was they made it so that if you get hit with a concussive shell, it always connects. So charge always reaches the target unless it's a speedling on creep is the only thing that can time it out. and what is it? The Zealot always gets to attack when it connects. The attack that it hits with cannot miss.
So interesting. Probe and I, at WCS Austin last year, we were sitting in the player pit, and unfortunately at this point Probe had been knocked out of Austin, but we were sitting around and we decided to start playing around with charge. We tried like recalling units that were like charged at. We tried playing around, I think, with like the blink range, so you could blink further than charge could go. So charge actually has a max distance.
Yeah.
It seems like, or sorry, not a max distance. Like you'll charge for X amount of time.
Yeah, but there's only one thing that really causes that to drag out far enough.
Yeah, that's very true. It really is just the speedling on creep that can really realistically do it.
That's the only thing I've ever seen it not connect with, but
yeah.
Anyway, the cyber cores are done, so things are happening. Fast Stargate will be the choice for MaNa, and it's a Nexus for Harstem. So Harstem's playing with that Stalker Sentry opening that we were talking about before. He's going to have a little bit less firepower, but the Nexus is a little bit faster. The Stargate could end up being annoying because that Sentry becomes a vulnerable target to a Phoenix if those Stalkers choose to attack, but that's what the shield battery's for.
And that Sentry is also very important for Harstem because it's his method of scouting. The Oracle is going to be able to get scouting information for MaNa over here, but if he's also able to pick off that Sentry, he denies scouting for his opponent. But okay, 4 Stalkers going to make their way forward. There's a shield battery here, so no real hope of doing too much damage, and you might end up losing a Stalker. Ooh, nice pick off.
That's a great pick for Harstem, and now he's going to send out the hallucinated Phoenix to scout. Oh, snap! Oh, barely gets it. That's pretty big. So the Sentry's not going to have any energy pretty much ever. It's going to take forever for it to get back up to that hallucination. So you already pointed out that MaNa's ability from the Stargate to build that Oracle to get the Phoenix out, that's going to allow him to scout super duper easily. And he's going to go, he's going to be like, I see your Twilight, your Robo.
No.
I got nothing to worry about.
Okay, well, luckily he does have a shield battery inside his main mineral lines, so Harstem should legitimately be pretty safe against this Oracle. The Oracle can pick off a 1 or 2 units sometimes, but you'll see, actually, yeah, I like this. Just go for the stasis trap.
It's better to go for the stasis trap because that shield battery will out DPS even the Oracle. Until
out HPS, the Oracle. Yeah.
You know what I mean. Until it's out of energy, the Oracle actually still has a really rough time killing Probe, so.
It's still worth noting, though, that again, Harstem doesn't have much vision of what exactly his opponent's been up to after that Stargate opening. He can probably assume there's going to be a Robo, but then there's small little questions. Is my opponent going into charge really quick? Is he getting up a much faster Robo? Sometimes there are even very fast Disruptor plays in PvP. There's so many different possibilities in this matchup that not being able to see what your opponent's up to can really, really unnerving.
This is important. Do the Adepts see that there's a Robo Bay being added for Harstem in that back side? That's a huge
They have spotted it.
If he takes a good look at that, he says, well, why are you going for Disruptor or something? Meanwhile, the Oracles of and getting in a lot of damage. And Harstem getting bludgeoned a bit. Those Oracles are both going to escape. Is that like 1 health?
That's insane. He actually has 1 hit point left over on that Oracle. This Adept does eventually get picked off, but man, that was some really good damage. Not even just the workers killed. All of the workers in the main base mineral line also forced off of mining. This was super effective from MaNa.
Yeah, so Blink's about to finish. The Robo Bay's about to finish. And I find this curious. Hey, he wants to go Blink, Stalker, Disruptor. This isn't something that we see crazy often these days. If your control is good, it can be great. I mean, not everybody can play like the God Emperor M. Canning, but perhaps Harstem will be trying to challenge his inner NA for this play.
Okay, Oracle's moving forward. They're going to try and focus fire down a couple of these workers. Remember that worker count, he's killed off 6 workers, but he wasn't that far ahead. Now he's getting pretty decently far ahead of his opponents.
He got one of those, one of the Oracles. The one with 0 HP makes it out with like no shields as well.
Oh man, feels bad, man.
Stalkers are trying to hunt those forces down, trying to find something, a little something.
Okay, well, Harstem finally does have an observer on the other side of the map spotting out for third bases, which I think is a very important thing to be looking for. Sometimes you might see a Protoss player go for the low ground third base. I think it's a little less common in this matchup. But
I would just like to say that I think there's also a big potential here if MaNa realizes that it is just going to be a bunch of Disruptors coming out, that he could use his Stargate to try and get a few Phoenix and cancel Disruptor shots that might come out, which is one big way we've seen Phoenix used in PvP, particularly against Disruptor Stalker play, since it's all about just canceling that shot and giving your units time to shoot. Are those Disruptors stuck? A little bit.
bit.
I don't know if he wanted.
No, hold on. There's a little gap. There's a gap right here, I think, maybe.
Is there though?
Is
it
there
enough of a gap?
Is there? I'm not sure.
We're about to find out.
Harstem's about to find out. He's gonna be so sad if he realizes he's moving across the map. And
this is just, this is just triggering my anxiety. So I'm gonna put my camera over there. Look at it forever.
Okay, yeah, you just let us know as soon as.
Okay, they made it out. They fit out.
Oh, thank God. Oh boy. That top 10 ways to have an embarrassing loss at WCS.
Honestly, I think Disruptors look bigger than Archons, and Archons wouldn't be able to make it through a space like that. So the third base is going to be under attack. The Immortals are here. This not really that huge, but the Disruptors are coming over, and that's what's going to make this very scary.
Okay. Disruptor shot number 1, not getting too much damage on, but the Oracle's also trying to poke forward, killing off 5 workers as
these
well.
Oracles are getting work done.
Man, this Observer is also really nice because he just gets to see any time that Harstem decides to move back in with the workers. If he tries to send a couple of those extra units up to that main base, he sees all of the army positioning.
And guess what? He's building 2 Phoenix at a time.
Now, the Phoenix play, dealing with the Disruptors, it absolutely can work, but it requires a bit more finesse, I would say, than it used to. In the past, it was kind of like, oh, the Disruptor shot a shot, just go lift it up, and like, eventually, you'll cancel it out.
You just gotta take a note out of Roddy's book, all right? You build Immortals to kill the Stalkers, you build Phoenix to deal with the Disruptors.
Whoa.
You get enough, you'll kill everything, all right? That's
okay.
The Protoss mech strategy, I believe. And there you go, you can see it working beautifully. Lifts up the Disruptors, and that's it. So what are you going to do about the Phoenix? Nothing. He's got 5 Immortals under them.
Yeah, this is a bit of a problem. Now, it's very important to note that when he's lifting up those Disruptors, he has to get the lift up before the Disruptor shot connects, because it explodes a lot sooner than it used to. But man, these Oracles getting even more damage. And now there's only 1 Oracle left over, so it won't be getting any additional damage. But Disruptors firing off the shots, getting an Archon, softening up an Immortal, but that's not enough.
Gotta see them pickups. GG, MaNa takes the first game. Oof.
Kind of a commanding way, too.
I hope Roddy's watching this. That's a cheeky bit of Protoss mech there. Not bad at all. The Immortal Phoenix is so good versus Disruptors, but really, I mean, Harstem almost didn't have a chance that game just because of the economic damage that he suffered. Yeah. At no point was his economy even close to MaNa's. I feel like whatever MaNa wanted to do, like, he should have been able to make it work, but having a unit like the Phoenix that can just neutralize. As soon as you lift up that Disruptor, its shot is gone. I think it even resets the cooldown too. You're like, that's it.
It's still on cooldown.
You're screwed.
It's a rough spot when you get into that position, but I feel like it all started with just the Oracle opening, pushing forward, killing off a handful of the workers, and then denying the Phoenix Scout. So Harstem just had to play ultra safe. He had to get up that shield battery in his main mineral line to deal with the or making sure you could deal with the Oracle. He had to deal with all of these kind of weird pressures. The first scouting information he really got was when his Observer finally moves over and scouts the 3rd base. But by that point, you know, there's already so many other units just moving forward. It's so difficult to deal with anything at that point.
Yeah, it's a weird game, really, for Harstem, not being able to get that information, being blocked in by the Stargate units, and then the choice to go Disruptors is an interesting one when your opponent has that Stargate opening, and it's one that makes me kind of question because, like, Zealot Immortal Archon, the thing about the Archons is that you can't lift them up. So they are, like, he kind of says, like, don't build a bunch of Phoenix, and their damage is the splash. The Phoenix usually clump up. That's how they want to shoot together. So you can kind of neutralize that if you can get to that later stage of the game, unless your opponent goes for, like, Sky Toss really early. But, I mean, we're not playing the NA qualifier match right now, so it's not something that I would be worried about versus European Protoss players.
Yeah, it's usually not quite as common, but I will say that I do feel that Phoenixes are, like, I think that in that situation, MaNa controlled it really well. And I think that's why the Phoenixes work. I've seen a lot of Protoss players that try to go for Phoenix versus Disruptors these days, and just they can't get the lift-ups on time of the right Disruptors because the Zealots are in the front lines, or the, the Archons or the Immortals are a little too close to the Disruptors, and boom, they just get immediately hit, and you just don't even have that timing window to use your Phoenix Graviton lift to cancel the Disruptor shot. So it's something that requires a lot of finesse and really good positioning control, and MaNa just did a really great job with it, I think.
Yeah, I can't really add anything else to that. Yeah. As he's up 1-0 now in this best of 3, potentially going to eliminate Harstem here from European Challenger as we load into Backwater for game number 2.
Oh man, what a situation. I mean, who would have predicted this, where we have the player that I think a lot of people favored as potential first place finisher in this group. Down here in the bottom right, it's Harstem from Team Asterion, who's So close to death.
Yeah, this is a tough position to be in. He's facing off against the grizzled veteran on the top left. That is MaNa.
MaNa, like you said, grizzled veteran. He's been around since early Wings of Liberty days. I think he won like DreamHack Summer 2012 or something, but it's been a while since he's been able to really turn those results into like a big finish. I know he's gotten like second place at some things, but not quite getting those tournament finishes since, I want to say 2012 or so.
He's had some good results. I mean, when we had WCS in Poland, he kind of like stepped it up a bit, and a lot of people talk about the home field advantage and all that. That makes things. Players do play a lot better in their own countries usually. They feel that fire, they feel that extra motivation. You want to look good in front of your homeboys. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that too, because I feel as though there's got to be players that have the opposite effect, where you're playing a hometown crowd and you don't want to disappoint them. So now it's almost like there's that weird pressure on you.
But there's other things too, like if you don't have to travel very far to an event. A lot of people, I mean, anybody, if you've ever taken a trip across the world, even for pleasure, the first day or two, you're like, oof, right? Stuff like jet lag, just settling in, sleeping in a different bed, all of those things add up, and then you're like, well, now I gotta go play somebody for thousands of dollars in a video game, and it's not on my computer, which I use all the time, and you know, that's what you're comfortable with. It's all those factors, but
yeah, hometown advantage definitely ended up coming to a bit of effect, but okay, we got the probes just moving in here. We got double gateway openings. Like you said, Nate, there is not really another kind of opening unless you're doing something absolutely insane, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of like the nature of PvP. There's a lot of people, I guess if you like play on ladder, you'll still play these guys that will go for the adepts, and they just throw them in. They're like, well, yeah, it takes the stalkers forever to kill the adepts, and if the adepts can kill like 5 or 6 probes, then you're actually just like totally dead, because then the next 2 adepts come in and you can't afford stalkers anymore, and then you die. And well, in case you didn't know, Nathan started walling off really early in his PvP because he hates playing versus adepts.
Yeah, there's a lot of complications with that. If you mess up the kind of wall-in versus the adepts, it does cause some problems. And the other nice thing is that it does keep the stalkers at home for a bit. So you can't do things like what Harstem is doing right now, where he's just moving out with these stalkers if he had to worry about some adepts moving across the map.
And this can still get awkward. It's kind of like this conversation we had. It's like the Reaper setup, where if the stalkers run into each other in the middle of the map, it can be difficult to disengage once you trade a few shots. But finding that probe is pretty nice. Being able to kill it would have been nicer.
Yeah, but even just, you saw that probe was trying to go up toward the top right and maybe go in for an eventual scout or something along those lines, but just being denied for a while, even if he doesn't get the kill, is kind of nice, because it does keep MaNa also a bit in the dark, who's not really getting an opportunity to move out across the map and isn't going for that Stargate opening that Harstem is going for this game.
Yeah, we're going to flip-flop it and reverse it with the Phoenix coming out for Harstem. And it's the Robo opening for MaNa. MaNa is getting a Warp Prism too. And I mean, this is a really tense moment because he's going to have more units. The Phoenix control is going to be so important, but also that Warp Prism micro is going to I think the Warp Prism micro for MaNa is going to decide the game. He can win this game if he controls this properly with his production, but if that Prism gets sniped or picked off at any point, he's just dead in the water.
Yeah, this is a fake out natural, which I don't even know if that pylon at the natural even got scouted. No, it didn't, but now he's going to scout it out and he's going to see, wait a second, but you still don't have a natural. Mine is almost done. Something is coming.
You build the battery of shields, as it were, set up, defend, and that's where the Prism tries to get him inside the main base. But if he goes for that, then that means he's got no way out if that Prism gets sniped. And the Phoenix gets a little bit of a tag. That Prism is worth $1 million right now.
Yeah, that Prism is MaNa's lifeblood right now. He's going to be warping at a lot more Stalkers. Got to keep that Prism close to the Stalkers. Now it looks like MaNa's just going to try and pounce on this. He's trying to one-shot down. These Stalkers just barely missing the synchronized shot.
I'd like to see pickup micro on that Prism. It's just going to back off, and that means the Phoenix are going to be able to kill it. But perhaps MaNa has enough to get it done as he's pushed his way up that ramp, and he's going to pick off a pylon that's powering 2 of these warp gates, which means the production has been pretty much completely shut down for our Dutch Protoss player, and the Stalkers are in here. The probes are going to get pulled off of the line, but not before he focuses down the rest of the Stalkers in this army, removing the primary source of damage for Harstem.
Oh, but remember, Harstem actually has a natural, so if he can hold on here, he's still leading up in workers. He needs to let that pylon finish up so he can start warping in some more units, but he doesn't even have the resources anymore because he's not mining. He does manage to push back these Stalkers.
Great probe pull. And we see here the next wave of Stalkers comes in, but it is just so delayed. Finally, the Phoenix are out of energy. But this game still looks so different if he hadn't lost that Prism. Keep it on top of your Stalkers. Make your opponent have to deal with that. Don't let the Phoenix be able to just go kill them.
The Phoenixes are starting to get their energy back. There's going to be another lift up in a matter of seconds, I believe. Now one of them has it. 3 more Stalkers are going to be joining the fray soon. But remember, this is a huge all-in from MaNa. He has to make this game end here.
Yep, he's got to take the game right now. Grabs another Stalker. Those Phoenix are getting value. And as you pointed out, having the 2 Nexus, just being able to spread out those resources, even if he doesn't build any more workers and they're close on economy, he can always transfer them to the natural once the mains start to mine out. The game were to go that long. And he should be hunting for another Warp Prism. If Harstem finds it, I think that's game over. The Prism is out. There is one on the map.
It's down over on the south side. So now he's just looking for some of these reinforcements. He's going to pick off 1 Stalker. Might be able to pick off a second Stalker.
This is just perfect. Perfect for Harstem. The Stalkers pushing into the main base and getting surrounded by the probes really was everything. He's still able to deal a lot of damage to these forces here, but once the Big Daddy Phoenix come back, it's going to get more and more difficult. And there we go. The question I ask myself now is, where is the Prism? Where is the pickup micro Ben here? That's something that's really been lacking. The Prism has not been a factor in the fights, and I think that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, but if he brings the Prism to the fight, the Phoenix are going to instantly snipe it off as well. So then your reinforcements are slower. But it is that big question, Nate. Do you want faster reinforcements or do you want better micro?
With the original push that he made, he had enough Stalkers.
I think
Phoenix
the
can't
original
pick stuff
one,
up the Phoenix can't pick stuff up if they're trying to kill the Prism. And if they're right on top of them. Like, now we're at the point where it doesn't matter. I don't know that MaNa can really do a whole lot here, just because Harstem is now ahead in workers, and once he realizes that he's safe, if he dumps a Chrono into both of those bases, which he has a ton of energy for, and just starts pushing out probes, he's going to be sitting pretty 4 shield batteries.
The real problem is that anytime you fall behind in army supply and also workers versus a Phoenix player, Phoenix are the ultimate I am ahead and I'm going to stay ahead unit, because they will constantly move into your main, move into your natural, pick off 1, 2, 3 workers, and it's just so difficult to have enough DPS to really completely shut down the Phoenix. So eventually, slowly but surely, Harstem is just going to start raking up kills on the workers and staying way further ahead on that.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, I'm worried for MaNa. Like, his attack had everything that I think it needed, but there was like a moment where you had a couple Stalkers that were really low on red health or at the front fighting against Harstem's forces, and there's no like cheeky pick up and pull back, and that can be related to, you know, perhaps the speed that MaNa is playing at, being one of these older players. That's a huge opportunity, and now the Phoenix are going to come in. There's so much energy. He can kill almost all of the probes here. And Stalkers don't kill Phoenix very quickly.
Yeah, there was also a limbo line, because remember the 2 gateway opening that every Protoss player goes for? Well, guess what? That creates a little bit of a choke point. So when your Stalkers are on the wrong side of it, it takes even longer to get in position.
Yeah. Not having Blink done yet really hurts. Blink is closer. Yeah, it's kind of a little past halfway.
He's getting there, slowly but surely, and MaNa, he's just going to fall further and further behind, because he doesn't even have his gas geysers at his natural yet, much less if he got them. He wouldn't really be able to mine all that efficiently off of this base anyways, because he doesn't actually have enough workers to make it worth it.
Yeah. Forge coming in, +1, Twilight. So Harstem can't get like the power upgrades that he needs as fast, because I think he can get Blink finished if he keeps chronoing it and then move into charge at a similar pace to his opponent.
Oh, if only Blink was 5 or 6 seconds further along, he could have actually maybe Blunk, or I guess 15 seconds further along. Could have maybe sniped off 2 or 3 of those Phoenix, which would have made a pretty big difference for him, I would say.
Yeah. Those Phoenix are very valuable. At some point in the game, he will probably use them to try and lift up the Immortals in a big fight where they're going head-to-head against each other, and then just have them do whatever they can past that. But these Stalkers, not able to get really a whole lot done, and a lot more probes dead for MaNa.
Yeah, interesting. He didn't actually want to Blink on top of those Phoenix there. It looks like he maybe is trying to hide Blink for the moment, although with having so many Stalkers, it's hard to not anticipate it. Recall comes out from the Warp Prism. I actually like that because otherwise the Phoenix may just be on their way back home.
Yeah, the Phoenix will just head where the Prism was and pick it off.
But now the natural expansion. GG, he's just going to tap out. Doesn't even take the main fight.
He's like, well, there's not really a whole lot that he could do in that situation. He's boxed in. His attack didn't work. Really, I feel like he had the tools necessary to take it with that Stalker push, but at that point, you could keep the Prism. We tried to keep the Prism with the army. Sending it away during the fight pulled the Phoenix away, but they were already out of energy, so I feel like it's better to let the opponent try and kill the Warp Prism on top of the Stalkers in that situation, because Harstem was pulling his Stalkers back into his main base, and if the Prism is on the Stalkers, he can just hold position his Stalkers at the bottom of the ramp, kill the Nexus, at least knock Harstem down to one base. He doesn't need to go up the ramp and let all the probes become, you know, so powerful in this round. But also, if he does that and the Phoenix try to shoot him down, because the Stalkers have left, his Stalkers will actually kill the Phoenix, because there are only like 3 of them, and then the Warp Prism potentially survives. You get another Warping of Stalkers as the Natural's dead, and then you just snowball everything.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of small things. I even want to go back to, it was really early back on in the game, but remember there was the Stalkers for Harstem moving out across the map, and they encountered that cheeky little pro that was moving across the map. I almost wonder, you know, sometimes when you're trying to go for these one-base all-ins, you do set up those kind of defensive, or I guess not defensive,
he might have,
offensive
he might have tried to put a defensive gateway there.
And imagine if there was a gateway or even just the pylon for slow warp-ins, that I think changes the outcome of how a lot of those fights end up going.
Would have been better than rallying out of his own base across the map.
Yeah, and even when he was doing that, he was losing some of the Stalkers because the Phoenix are going in and picking off a bunch of them. There were so many small things that just went perfectly, I think, for Harstem in that game. And MaNa, he did a really good job trying to make it work, and he almost made it work. But you're right, there were some small things that, with our bird's eye view, we can kind of easily say, like, oh, if he just done these things, it's so hard at the moment.
I don't think there's a reason to push up into the main like that. Like, I mean, like, the logic makes some sense. He got the pylon powering the gateway, so the production was shut down, but he moved up the ramp with Stalkers, and Stalkers are good, but those probes and everything coming in, like, bringing everything when you have the 2 bases to fall back on, it was certainly enough. Like, if he has that Prism alive and he just gets, like, even a few Zealots to fight against the probes, it's like, game is over.
I would have actually loved a few Zealots in there, but it's also kind of, I guess, weird because you're going for those one base all in, so your economy is very important.
Yep.
So you don't really also get that much of a scout on what your opponent is up to. You don't really get to see until you, like, actually move in with your main force, like, oh, this is how many shield batteries it has, this is how many, like, what his unit composition is and everything. So regardless, we're going to be moving into Acid Plant for game number 3. We've had 2 kind of very different games in a lot of ways, with one of the games being a primarily one base all in, the other game been a pretty cool. It wasn't really a one base all in the first game. It was like 2 bases and just a really solid lead from the Oracle Harassment. But game number 3, we'll find out how things go.
Let's see who's gonna close it out. The man who just had himself an amazing finish at Nation Wars over here in the southeast position. The red Protoss player, the Duchy, he's Harstem.
And the top left, our Polish Protoss player from Team Liquid, and that Liquid Blue, MaNa.
Yup. MaNa putting forth some good play in this group, but it's still rough for him. He's going up against all these young whippersnappers that have been doing so well recently. Very excited for that winner's match, of course, in this group, as I'm very interested to see how Stefano fares against a laser, since Stefano seems to have brought his A game today.
Yeah, I do feel like ZVZ sometimes can be its own special little thing. Looks like we got a bit of a pause coming out for a moment. Looks like we are going to hold off for a moment.
Are either of us referees? Okay, the admin is actually still in the lobby.
Okay,
so we're good.
Yeah,
just one of the admin observers dropped out, so it's all good.
Unfortunate. I'm sure that they're going to be very remiss about missing game number 3 of this.
Well, I think they're in the production room so they can see everything that's over here anyway. So, we Gucci.
All right. Well, no immediate pylon scouts, or I should say gateway scouts coming out from either of these players, so they feel pretty content to just kind of do their own thing. Looks like MaNa may just scout around for some proxies. No, he's moving across the map, never mind. Whenever I see the probe hugging that kind of right wall over here, I always think, like, are you about to scout over by the 3rd for proxies? And it's always like, actually, no, this is just the most efficient path to my opponent's base.
Yeah, pathing on some of these maps can get a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it always looks like you're like, but the ramp is over there, the side's over there, but then you're like, oh wait,
I can't
no, it's
remember
over here.
which map it was. There was one where it was like actually purely random which way your worker would go whenever you clicked on the enemy's base.
I think I remember.
It was a two-player map. There was like 2 paths.
Yeah.
One of them was just like really bad, but somehow it like was just barely close enough that your worker would do it. And I was like, what?
Oh man,
And then you missed the proxy, and it's like, oh, it was on the other way. Oof.
my favorite was there were a couple of the maps. Like I remember it was Arena was one of them, and there were like a few others where there'd be like the bridge, and you could just wall it off with a pylon or supply depot. But you would if you're like my level or something.
Well, Tasteless taught me you can block it with just an Archon.
Wow, you know that's so fascinating. Where did Tasteless tell you that?
Yeah. Maybe every single game you ever cast on that map.
Oh yeah, but man, I remember I would sometimes not even notice. Oh, MaNa getting a really early shield battery to.
I
Oh,
think
this is just a wall. This is a wall in.
Yeah, he's just worried about getting hit with the depths.
Oh no, he's walling in the probe so it can't escape. He can kill it.
I
think.
Yeah.
I think
the
it's
depths might not have crossed the map by that point.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused for a moment because I'm so used to seeing a pylon instead of a shield battery. I'm like, wait,
The shield battery takes longer to build and it costs the same, so it's just you just wall off for longer and you have to cancel less.
Ah, yeah, that's a good point.
Shield battery is better for walling than pylons if you need it in a hustle, just because the shield battery at least does something for you if it accidentally finishes.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I always think of it as like the pylons because they build faster. They'll have more hit points.
But if you needed the wall for but if you need the wall for longer, because the wall really is just to block the shades. If it's an issue of time, then you'd rather the building.
If you're playing to cancel it, yeah.
Because you're gonna get the same amount of minerals back anyway. But if you have to build 2 pylons and cancel both of them instead of 1 shield battery, then it's
Okay, well, Nate, we got some Stargates from both sides, and that always leads into a very interesting predicament, because Harstem, he's doing what most Protoss players do when they go for the Stargate with Phoenix first. They hallucinate out a Phoenix or something, and they just get some sort of attempt at scouting information, but they leave their Phoenix at home because they do not want a chance that their opponent made a Phoenix also, and that they're just going to be outnumbered. So Harstem is going to take, I want to say, an immediate kind of really nice lead in this game if he is able to scout out that Stargate, because he's also going to be finding an Oracle.
Yep, that Oracle is going to make its way across the map, and if the Phoenix can run into that before it becomes a factor, that's going to be huge. He has the Stalkers up front. Is he going to try to use all of these forces together?
You know, I like it. This is actually a really cute move, because think of it like this. If the Phoenix chase after the Oracle, as they absolutely will, the Stalkers are there to actually protect you. So you don't just lose the Oracle outright anymore, unless Harstem is able to get to a really nice spot. Oh, there's the recall, but he loses the Oracle.
Ooh.
Keeps the 4 Stalkers alive.
That hurts. What happens if you... Do you know what happens if you graviton a unit that's being recalled?
It gets canceled. It doesn't get recalled.
Okay, so he could have tried to pick up a few of those units.
Yeah, I believe that actually is the case.
I know the Reaper Grenade, I don't know if they patched that yet, but the Reaper Grenade breaks recall as well. There's a few abilities that bug it out.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of them that are almost a little bit surprising.
Apparently you can recall neural parasited units as well, something like that. Yeah,
now you're making me want to, I'm going to like write down on my phone
right
now, like, what happens if a Viper pulls a unit from a recall point into another recall point? Man, you're giving me so many ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we do still have a second Oracle that MaNa made that was hiding in the far bottom left. He was waiting for the Phoenix to kind of rear their heads over to his side of the maps, because then he knows that now is the opportunity to strike. He's just going to be relying on these Phoenix mostly to deal with the Oracles, so sometimes your opponent may not actually be prepared. He's got a couple of Stalkers back at home, though. Harstem is ready for this Oracle.
Yeah, that Oracle dipping around. I mean, you want to scout what's going on, but it is PvP, so you generally have a lot of that sort of setup with Robo in the Twilight. Not able to get the Stasis Ward off in time, but there you go. Forge, Robo, Twilight, Immortals, probably charge, +1 into +2, etc., etc.
Yeah, all pretty typical stuff to be scouting out for. But it does really sting that he doesn't get anything really done with either one of those Oracles. Ends up losing both of them for pretty much nothing in exchange. Gets bare bones basic scouting information, I would say.
That Robo for MaNa, really late though. The Immortal production he could fall behind on. General rule of thumb, at least from what I've seen in PvP, is that you don't want to build Stalkers if you don't absolutely need them. And there's only 3 or 4 Phoenix on the map. He hasn't been building more. So you're in this odd situation where you don't want to build too many Stalkers, because once you get to the charge lot Archon Immortal phase, the Stalkers are not very useful. You can use them to like try to snipe some units or harass a little bit, But generally, you want to start putting that supply into your Immortals as early as possible. I really like the composition setup that Harstem is going for out of this early advantage from having the Phoenix deal with that Oracle.
Yeah, the charge lots really make things a lot more complicated for a primarily Stalker-based composition in PvP, just because MaNa's not going to have units that really fight in a direct fight very well, unless he starts going up to something like the Colossus, which we've occasionally seen in PvP lately. It's been really interesting. I don't fully know when exactly players tend to prefer it, but we also, of course, have those disruptors that'll end up doing a bit better versus those zealot-based compositions, but it's still going to be difficult for MaNa to get into a comfortable spot to really have either of those with such a late robo.
Yeah, and this is scary. He's getting a bunch of gateways in. He's got that +1. Blink's done, but he doesn't have charge on the way. Is he actually even building Immortals? Is he just going to try to use like mass Blink Stalker?
Okay, there's charge.
Yeah. Well, there's already 2 Immortals out for Harstem, and he's getting Archons up too. This makes me nervous.
Yeah, I feel like if he doesn't do something... Oh,
what is he?
oh, this is so
He
cute.
doesn't want to be feedback.
Yeah, he doesn't know if there's a Templar Archives yet.
Harstem is taking his Phoenix to the gym. They're getting their lifts in. They're getting them reps. How much do you bench? Do you bench an Immortal or do you bench a Sentry?
Are you asking me specifically?
Yeah, do you bench Immortals or you bench Sentries?
I think I bench like an Observer. It's like the assisted weight.
Fair enough, I guess.
It already floats on its own. All right, well, we got the move out over here from Harstem.
You do the half push-ups and the half pull-ups too, don't you?
What do you mean half? I do like quarter or 1/10.
The Phoenix are back inside the main base of MaNa, picking off a few probes. And he's going to be so happy to see this. You know, it's this weird scenario where sometimes you're like, oh yeah, the Phoenix can lift up the Immortals, but at least he doesn't have to worry about that because he doesn't have any Immortals.
He's not putting probes back on gas. That's so painful as a Protoss player because he's busy. There's even a Stalker. I thought this was an Observer, but it's a Stalker that's just attacking a bunch of workers, killing off even more of them, distracting his opponent as all of the Zealots move over to the third. And this allows Harstem to get into an even better spot.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about. The shield batteries are big. They can provide a game-changing power, but the Stalkers are not going to do a great job of killing the Zealots. They're not going to do a great job of killing the Archons once this fight actually is forced. And he's going to push straight in. He's picking up some of those units. Grabs the Sentry that is using the Guardian Shield, but takes a little bit of his time killing it.
He doesn't even have to win this fight. He's already done so much economic damage because during all this, 2 Zealots were going ham inside the natural, killing off all the probes mining gas, which, by the way, he was able to deny even more of that because he still is... Okay, now he did put the probes back on gas inside the main base, but Harstem wins out on the fight over by the third. I don't see how you can come back from this, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, Harstem just had a much better rounded out army composition, and MaNa, who got forced into building a bunch of Stalkers, as I've tried to say this because I feel like I learned this one the hard way, is that the more Stalkers you build in the beginning of a PvP, every Stalker you build that you don't 100% need puts you behind. Because it's just, we're not in that Blink Stalker Disruptor era that we used to be.
Yeah, it's almost like making Zerglings instead of drones for like a Zerg player in the early stages of the game. You're like, I'm going to get by with as few as I can to make this work, and then I'm going to transition to my Immortal Archon Zealot composition that'll just be super duper beefy, but well played.
Harstem stays alive and eliminates MaNa here in the World Championship Series Europe Challenger. Great gameplay. That third game, he took it to the hole, straight to the Phoenix, catches the Oracle, and that's it. Gets a little bit of harass done, and he's like, well, I'm going to make this transition in charge and Immortals way faster than you. MaNa went into Blink early on and got his Robo very late. No Immortals in the army to help deal with the forces that he had up in front of him. Because it's not even just about the Immortals doing bonus damage versus armored units. It's just having your range, right?
Yeah.
The Zealots are melee. The Archons are that just behind. And then you have your Immortals in the backline. Everything can shoot. And Stalkers can kind of be like that, except for the ones up front. They all die instantly.
And they just don't do the damage either. It's like they don't really fit into any one of those roles super well. They just kind of do them like adequately.
Yeah, if you want to run around and try to pick stuff off, that's great. You want to do like the 4 Stalker blink into the main to try and snipe probes, that's fine too. But you're not winning a lot of games. You're not beating Charge a lot of Mortal Archon with mostly Stalkers.
Probably not anytime soon. But man, really, really impressive showing there from Harstem, who I know that we hyped up and we really expected to do well. It didn't quite do as well in his series versus Stefano.
It could just be Stefano magic too. It's important to keep in mind. Stefano might end up taking this group first place, and we end up with a nail biter between Harstem and a laser.
Well, that is our next match also. Stefano versus a laser to find out who's going to move out into the playoffs in that, I would say, 7th spot that we have for the playoffs. And then there's only going to be one left. That's pretty rough. But of course, Harstem, having won his series, is going to move on to that decider match. He will play versus the loser of the following match of Stefano versus a laser. And he'll still have that opportunity to qualify for the playoffs. And that's also going to be a pretty exciting one. But what are your predictions?
Big moment. Based on Stefano's gameplay earlier, I still think that a laser is really good and really solid. And a laser schooled MaNa at the start of this match, despite being a 2-1. Like, the Nidus play really felt like a giveaway. Like, he just flipped a coin and he just didn't really care about it either way. So I expect to see a laser play very strong. I'm hoping to see Stefano do some weird stuff, because I think that's what it's going to take to beat someone as stable as him. Yeah,
especially with ZVZ, man. It's pretty important to be able to throw in a couple of weird things. I mean, ZVZ is a pretty weird and interesting matchup with a lot of different types of playstyles. You can play the macro, you can try and play the all-ins. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more WCS EU Challenger, moving into that next match, that winner's match of a laser versus Stefano in just a little bit.
This poor town has seen its share of trials.